Boom, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today's video will be about the memory card project as part of the Odin project's curriculum. It's the second React project as part of the course. It's definitely a challenging one for sure, but I'll try and break down this project here the best I can in this video. Also, disclaimer with this video, if you're watching this here, I assume that you've already completed the project. I don't recommend you watch this video here and just like copy code and just kind of use it as a tutorial, because it's really not that. This is really videos just to really help you if you get really stuck and you really try to make a good effort. You just kind of need a little nudge or a little inspiration in the right direction. That's what it's there for. Or if you already completed the project, you get to see another approach of how a retard like me completed the project. So that's basically it there. Don't cheat and just copy the code word for word, unless you are really, really stuck and you've been stuck on it for like a week or so, and you just need a little nudge in the right direction. I got you there. So, okay, enough of me rambling there. Let's get into memory card. So basically, what are we going to do with memory card here? It's going to be a memory game, so you can use any different cards you want. You can use like Pokemon cards, playing cards, I don't know, food items, video game characters, whatever you want to use there. I just use playing cards, short and simple. So the whole point of the game, you get points for clicking on unique cards, different cards, and you lose the game when you click on any card, any of these 10 cards more than once. Okay, so let me just refresh that again. So let's say 10, 10 of diamonds. I had to think of what set that was there for a second. If I click on 10 of diamonds, I lose there. And I have an option to restart the game with any number of cards from 0 up to 52 cards, because there's 52 cards in a deck. Okay, so boom, that's it there. Again, I get points for clicking on unique cards. If I click on any card more than once, I will lose the game. And also notice it updates my score there. It keeps track of my highest score. And that's basically it. That is basically it. So let's kind of get into some of the code here. So start out an app here. Whenever you're making any React apps here or projects, app is where it's kind of like, I think of it as your base camp, like your home base. You can have a lot of different functions here that can be passing data to different components and things like that. So app is really kind of your home base here, because it does get rendered here in the main JSX file. So a lot of stuff is going to be going on in app there. It can be passing data to different components and things like that. There's a lot going on for sure. So I have a bunch of imports here at the top of the file there. We're going to be using some state. We're going to be using an effect to make our API call. We just got to import our styles. We have our header component. We have our card component. We're using Axios, which is, I don't really know how to describe it, but I think it's just like software to make like asynchronous API calls. It's super, super simple to use. We have our error component, loading component, and a losing component. That's basically it there. So then we have our state variables here. Data is just going to be the cards. All the cards are going to be stored in that array there. We have our error state here. It's going to start as null. We don't have any errors, but hey, if we do encounter one, our state will change to show that error. We have our loading component here. It's going to start as false. Same thing with error. If we get a loading screen or loading message, we're going to display that. We have our click cards array, which is going to start out as empty. We have a has user lost state as well. It's going to be false. If the user does lose, it flips to true, and we're going to print a losing component. We have our current score, set to 0, of course. Best score, of course, again, set to 0. We have our value, second, excuse me. We have our value state here, and we also have user card input down here. Set to a default value of 10. I'll explain this a little more when we get to the losing component, but value here, or set value, is what we grab when we go to the losing component. That little input field there. So when we lose, boom, whatever we grab in this little input field there, that's going to be our set value or value. And then we have, what was it last? User card input, which is also a default value of 10. And so I'll explain that a little more when we get to the losing component. I'll make sure to explain that. So then we have our use effect hook here. We're going to be making an API call. We're going to fetch some cards from an external API. So what we got here, we have before our try block, we're going to set loading to true. So if the API call is taking some time, we're going to print a little loading message there to the screen. And then we're going to wrap our API call in a try catch block. Boom, there's our API call using await axios.get. That's the Axios syntax right there. And then we're passing in that user card input using some template strings there. We're passing that variable into our API call there. So if I don't enter anything, it's going to have a default value of 10 and print 10 cards to the screen. If I enter 20, it's going to print 20, so forth and so on. And once we get our API call, once we get the response back, we're going to set our data. We are going to set our data there. Okay, and remember, data is just the cards. So get our API call back, and then we're going to set that into state. So we got our cards in a nice little array there. And then we have our catch block here. So if we do get an error, we're going to console log it to the stream, but also we will print it as a component as well. So we're basically just setting our error state there with a little message here like that. And that's basically handles some errors there. That's our catch block there. And then finally, when it is all done, we are going to set the loading back to false, meaning that we got all our info, we got our cards. Let's kind of get into the game there. Okay. And then we have some different handler functions here. Oh, and before I get there, almost forgot this dependency array here. That this effect will run. What this basically means here, it's a little dependency array. This effect, this call will run each time user card input changes. So whenever I enter how many new cards I want for a new game, or if the user has lost, that effect, this whole big juicy block of code here. Oop, not that. So whenever you lose the game or user card input changes, this whole big old block of code will run again. Okay. So now we get into our handler functions. We have our handle card click, we have our losing conditions, we handle score change, click cards array, we shuffle the cards, so forth and so on. The handle card click. So where does that come from? Well, we have a card component, which basically takes our data, all the different cards there, maps through them, and prints them to the screen. If we click on any one of those cards, it's going to call our handle card click function. Notice how we're also using props here, passing in our data, our cards, and handle card click function, so we can use them within this component. We click on a card, handle card click function gets called, which basically adds it to the click cards array, and it shuffles the deck for us. And if the user has not lost here, that's what we're kind of doing here. If the user has not lost, handle the score, update the score. And then we get to our next function here, determine losing conditions. So if the click cards array includes that selected card, so if there's duplicate cards in the click cards array, meaning that you did click on the same card twice, you're going to lose the game. So we're going to re-update our state here. We have lost, which is true. We're going to set our score back to 0, and we're going to return a Boolean here. Return true or false, because this is what determines that up there. If we did not lose, handle the score change. If we did lose, don't do anything. Don't increment the score. Okay, then we have a handle score change here. So we're basically just setting a variable, taking current score, adding 1 to it, and then setting the current score like that. But also we have a little if block in here. If the new score is higher than the best score, set best score equal to new score. That it gets updated just like that. We have a click cards array. So we take in a card there. And whenever you're updating arrays in React, you want to make sure that you don't mutate. You don't want to mutate state or the data directly. So you have to make a copy of your array, which is the click cards array, using the spread operator there. There's 3 little dots. And then we add our new selected card item into that array. So again, you don't want to mutate state directly. Make a copy of it there and also return your newly updated card or your newly added item in there. We have our shuffle cards function here. We basically make a copy. Again, we don't want to mutate state directly, so we make a copy of the array. We use a sort method, and we also use a math.random method here to basically shuffle all the cards in the deck there. I got this little inspiration here from Stack Overflow. The good old power of Googling and Stack Overflow can take you a long way, people. That's for sure. That's for sure. Good old Stack Overflow. So then we get to our return block here. So here, when you're using React components here, you have your return statements here where you're going to be rendering your components. So we have our header text where we pass the current score and the best score as props. Let me show that to you guys there. Where is that header? Yep, pass the current score and the best score. Boom, print them right there. Plugging in them variables. What else we got here? Next, we're using short circuit conditionals here. So these are really cool. So in order for this component here to render, the card component, both of these have to be true. So if the user has not lost, let's render this card component here. And that card component, we're passing a couple props to it there. Handle card click and data, as you saw up there, passing it as props. Okay. And we also have our error component here. So if we do have an error, let's render this component here. Boom. So both of these have to be true. If we do get an error, boom, let's render this component here. We have our loading component. Okay, if loading is true, because remember it starts out as false up here. If we somehow do get a loading message, boom, see it starts out as false. If we do get a loading message, it's taking a while, we're going to render that to the screen as well. So now, if the user has lost, we're going to print our losing component. We're going to pass a bunch of different props to it. So now let's get into our losing component. I think we went over all the other different card components, error component. Yeah, not too much to see here in error component, just printing out that error message there. We pass it as props to it so we can display it. We already said the header component. Just making sure we covered everything here. The loading component, boom, that's it. Okay, so now time for the losing component. What's going on here? We're passing a bunch of different props to it. And we print out that losing screen, game over. Do you wish to play again? All right, how many cards do you want for the next game? So forth and so on. You can choose 0 cards, anything up to 52 cards. We have a default value here. I don't think this is necessary, but I just plug something in there just so, you know, a default value of like 10 or something shows up there. Yeah, 10 shows up, right? Okay. Yeah, it just plugs in a default value in there. So that's the default value. And then we have an on change in there. So it will, like I said, it'll default to 10. Let me just refresh this again. I think it's holding on to that 15. Yeah, again, it's setting that default value to 10, but if we change anything into it, you can, you know, use the incrementer here. You can write something in there. If we change anything, we're going to update the value, capture that newly updated value there. Then we're going to pass that value to set user card input. And if you remember, when we're setting user card input here, user card input gets called in our API call. So whatever we enter in that input field for how many cards we want for the new game, that's going to get passed to our API call right there. Boom. But if we don't use anything, it's just going to print out a default set of 10 cards there. So that's what's going on there. We have our input field once again. We have our input field. We're setting the value in there. We're capturing the e.target.value in there. Setting the value, then we're passing that value to the user card input so it can be used in our API call right there in app. What else we got here? Cool, we passed the value. And once we press the restart button there, that's what this whole block is doing right there. We are going to set user has not lost is going to be false so they can play a new game. And then we're setting the click cards array to an empty array. So the game can start and there's no duplicate cards. It's just a fresh empty array so you can play a new game. So boom, I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. That is pretty much it. Styles are very basic. I won't really go into it too much here. This project is, you know, it's a piece of shit, honestly. It's not a work of art by any stretch. The only thing I'll say, I did use a little bit of Bootstrap, mostly just for like buttons. I think just like from like my one button or something like that. But it's very straightforward, very easy to use. That is basically it. And I guess the last feature is just, you know, it's mobile responsive as well. So if I go into like DevTools and I mess around with the the dimensions of it, as you can see, it kind of adapts to different screen sizes. Pretty simple to get that working. There's really not too much content on the screen, so figured I'd make it responsive as well. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's pretty much it. So again, memory card, you get points for clicking on unique cards, and you lose the game if you click any card more than once. You have an option here to type in different a different number of cards for your next game, like so. You go anything up to 52 cards. Yeah, and your highest score will persist throughout the game. And that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. We have a little, you know, a little hover class there, where it kind of adds a little kind of animation transition, just like that. And that is pretty much it, guys. That is the second React project as a memory card game. I think biggest things with this project is using Axios and getting API calls to fetch, you know, some cards from an external API. We're using some short circuit conditionals here. We're using state. I really like the short circuit conditionals a lot. They're really, I think they're really straightforward and easy to use. That hey, if we lost the game, let's render this losing component here. That's another big feature of this project as well. Hey, you might have a different approach. I had a blast using them short circuit conditionals in this project. But that is pretty much it, guys. I'm gonna give another video update here soon on shopping cart. Kind of brainstorming some different ideas of what I want to use on that project. I'm going to try and make it a really good project, a good portfolio piece so I can show off. Can't wait for that. I know it's going to be a tough project. I'm going to make a video up, lots of video updates along the way. And that's pretty much it, guys. I've probably said that 10,000 times, but appreciate anyone tuning into my videos. If you have any questions or concerns, please like or leave a comment. Consider subscribing as well. My goal is just to help you and just create awesome videos and project breakdowns and help anyone going through the Odin project curriculum. So have a good one, guys. Until next time, another video update coming here soon, guys. Take it easy. Keep working hard.